the general idea being that everything happens according to the will of a personal being. How would you respond to that in terms of your viewpoint and Fluke?
Yeah, so I love this question because one of the surprises I think in writing this book, I was a little bit worried actually about how it was going to be received by people who were particularly devout. And personally, I'm not, right? So I mean, I'm pretty
Yeah.
straightforward about this in my writing. I'm not a believer. But what I found is actually there's a lot of common ground between people who sort of view God as the author of everything and what I am, which is a hard determinist according to the laws of physics, right?
Mm.
And so what's really interesting, I had some fascinating conversations about this with people where I said, look, I think that stuff happens in this unbroken chain of causes and effects. And so I personally don't believe in free will in the form of, that I can choose everything that I want to about my life. I think a lot of it is determined for me by my parents, by all sorts of things in my genetics, et cetera, as well as the fact that I believe that my mind and my brain are basically the same thing. I think there's physical matter in my brain that is causing me to behave in certain ways. Now, that's a radically different viewpoint than someone who is thinking that they are the instrument of God in a way. But there is actually some commonality here because you sort of think that you are living out some sort of predetermined or somehow influenced part of your behavior. And for me, that's not God. It's physical causes through science and rationality and things that came before me in this unbroken chain back to the Big Bang. But what I think is really interesting about these ideas is that the fact that there's an overlap tells you that there is something where humans are grappling with this underlying question of whether we are the authors of our own destiny or not. And this is the stuff where theology and science are actually not as far apart as I think sometimes people believe, because they're trying to answer the same question. And so, I don't pretend to be a theologian of any sort whatsoever. I was raised Catholic, but I lapsed and so on. But it's the kind of stuff where I think there's this big underlying question that a lot of people in society are not asking themselves. And I think whether you're a believer or not, it is the central question, right? It's the question of why things happen. And I think basically science and religion are trying to answer that question just from slightly different frames of reference.